Welcome to back to the final segment of NTV Exclusive. I'm your host, Abul Hasnath. We've been talking about Islamic heritage in Western Europe. We've got so much more to pack in such a short time in this final segment. Tariq's going to go over that with us. Tariq, we've got quite a few things to look at, and I think we didn't do enough justice to your Baltic journeys. I mean, let's leave off on where we got to. So I mean, you've obviously you went out there. You found that community. Mm-hmm. The biggest question that I probably have, and it's what I want to probably hit off with, is the differences in lifestyle, considering they're Muslim, and then you have the Muslims of the UK. Yes. Like you and I. You've probably gone out there and you could point at so many differences amongst it. I mean, share with us what.
I think the Baltic story is quite unique because they were quite an isolated community, and they became isolated from the rest of the Muslim world for a long, long time. So to the point where they almost became invisible within Lithuanian society. And the other thing that this really
invisible
important,
or blended in and sort of appreciated the norm?
Invisible in the sense that, you know, they became their cultural norms became very much like the Lithuanian cultural norms. Many of them held on to their cultural heritage for as long as they could, and they would have, you know, people who still knew their religious rights at a very, very basic level. But one of the things that happened very early, quite a few hundred years ago, for example, they lost the ability to speak in their original Tatar language. So this is quite a tragic thing for a Tatar community, and this happened again because of this isolation, because they were so far away from the rest of the Tatar community. And then, of course, we mustn't forget that the whole of Eastern Europe experienced communism, and communism was very, very anti-religious, and so they also suffered under that period as well, and any religious kind of knowledge they had was squashed, you know, aggressively. And so what you have with a lot of the Baltic Tatars. Now they're very different to the Balkan Tatars, who we'll talk about later. The Balkan Muslims. The Baltic Muslims are very much, they're sometimes described as being practicing a kind of folk Islam. And this is where they are now starting to reinvigorate and bring back Islam in a much more kind of conventional way. And they're relearning in many ways. So one of my good friends now is the Grand Mufti of Lithuania, who came over to, when we did an exhibition in the East London Mosque about European Muslim heritage. Now, the Mufti grew up under communism and knew very little about Islam. But then later, he traveled to the Muslim lands. He went to Lebanon, he went to Syria briefly, he also went to Libya, where he studied. And so he brought that knowledge back, and now he's part of the process of re-educating many of the Baltic Muslims, both the indigenous Tatar Muslims who were born with Islam as an identity, if nothing else, and increasingly there are a lot of what you might call white Lithuanian Muslims who are converting as well.
And I mean, let's not forget there's a fair share of them here in the UK as well now.
Indeed.
And you know, let's just hope they're not that badly affected by the well, they will be in some shape or form by Brexit, but we want to avoid politics at all costs. I mean, let's go back to well, continue on what you're doing. I mean, what's next for you then?
So at the moment, I'm working on my book, which is based on the travels that I did the summer just gone. And over that summer, we covered what is known as the Balkan part of Europe. Now, the Balkans are also a very, very fascinating part of Europe because there is a living Islamic heritage out there. You know, we traveled across 7 different countries, starting in Bosnia, which many people know has a Muslim heritage. You know, increasingly we have come to acknowledge this. And we went from Bosnia, we went all the way through to Serbia, then we went to Kosovo, we dropped down to Macedonia, we went round to Albania, back up to Montenegro, briefly into Croatia, and back to Bosnia. And you know, you've got some of the pictures there. And so the book that I'm working on is essentially going to be narrating that particular journey. And it was a journey that I took with my family, and it was essentially a road trip.
Let me say, I mean, hopefully we should be at least able to bring up some images of your of the people that you went to, that you saw out in the Baltic. So if all is going well, I mean, I'm looking. There we go. It's come up on the screen here. So this is
this particular gentleman on the picture. He's working as a metal worker, and this is something he does now. He says in retirement because, you know, it helps him to relax. And also, one of the sad realities is it helps him forget what happened during the tragic siege of Sarajevo when he was actually a policeman.
Wow.
And, you know, during my interview with him, I didn't just learn about Muslim heritage in this particular interview, because Muslim heritage isn't just ancient. Muslim heritage is also modern. You know, the Sarajevo War was part of a bigger scenario where Muslims in that part of the world felt like they were being extinguished. You know, somebody was trying to wipe them off the face of the earth as an identity. So that was also an important story for me to document. And then the next picture that you've got, which comes...
I mean, this is coming up on the screen. This is a beautiful image. I mean, tell us more about this.
So this is an example of the kind of hidden gems that are all over the Balkan and Eastern Europe. You know, this is classical Islamic history from the Ottoman period. This is an ancient Sufi lodge. So this is where a lot of, you know, Sufi Muslims used to go, and still do. They would go there and they would retreat from the world. And you can see it's kind of tucked away in this beautiful location beneath a sheer rock face. You've got the mouth of a river coming out with deep blue waters, and it's just the most idyllic spot, you know, that one of the most idyllic spots that we ventured into. And this again is obviously in Bosnia as well. So
a little mini Niagara Falls, but it's giving you that sort of the water pitter-patter, and it's typical of what the I guess without being too critical of them, but the sort of Sufi mentality of going into a trance or going into a different mind frame. That's just the ideal location. I mean, I don't wish to forget that. I mean, you are a travel writer, and I mean, this is going to be such a huge selling point for you, if anything, because this is just perfect, isn't it?
Indeed, indeed. And then we've got the next picture coming up, and this kind of typifies what I was coming across just when I'm driving around the countryside. You know, you'd be driving through the Balkans, and this is obviously in Bosnia, and you just see minarets sticking out from all these various places, and you forget you're in Europe. Because we're conditioned to believe Europe isn't Muslim. But we forget this is Europe. And these Muslims are still there. They've been there for 600 years, 6 centuries, most of them. You know, obviously they're a part of that Ottoman legacy, when all those territories were Ottoman. You know, and you can see, you can just rock up in the middle of the mountains and you'll find a cemetery and a mosque.
You know what I find amazing about this picture, Tariq? And I mean, had that not been you travelling, and let's just say it had been someone else that was a British-born Muslim that was on holiday out in Europe, they would have just looked at that building and thought, oh, right, a piece of that country's history. But you've immediately spotted the signature for, wow, I need to go and check this.
Yeah, because that's exactly what I go out there for, you know.
Okay. We've got a video that we could share with everyone.
Yes.
Yes. Let's have a quick look at this video. I'm not going to say anything about it. Have a watch of this, and Tariq can tell us all about it. So let's run that videotape. আপনার টাইম কত মিনিট রয়েছে? হ্যালো, বিদ্যুৎ সমস্যা We've just had a bit of technical difficulty. We do apologise. Hopefully, well,
they can see all those videos on my.
I mean,
on my Facebook
for that
page.
video, it's a really good one. If you go to Tariq Hussain on Facebook, you can see it there on tariqhussain.co.uk. You can see it there as well. It's a really. I mean, just quickly dictate us through that video, really.
So those were really just short videos that I was making whilst we was on this journey. You know, where I was filming the odd piece of footage, or I was taking a picture, and I was just putting it together as a montage. Because in this day and age, as you know only too well, you're not just a travel writer. Yeah. You have to be a social media phenomenon, you know, and you have to be able to engage with people on social media. And unfortunately, or fortunately for some people, you know, you can't write loads and loads and stick it straight onto social media. Some people want to see the pictures and want to see audio visual as well. And so it was just a montage from our journey from Vienna to the Bosnia piece.
So we've pretty much run out of time, and there was so much more. I mean, I had some artifacts across here. We had some ancient coins here, which I so didn't get time to show you. Tariq, mate, if you could just, you know, sort of, what's the future message that you probably want to give to everyone in this?
Well, my ambition is really, it's very similar to what I recently saw Morgan Freeman was saying about Black History Month. And he was saying that, you know, he's really angry that there is a month dedicated to Black history, when Black history just should be a part of American history. And for me, that's what needs to happen about the Islamic history of Europe. You know, in time, it needs to be just a part of the history of Europe.
As a norm.
Yes.
Absolutely. We're completely out of time. Apologies on the video and the sort of technical difficulties. I'm going to invite Tariq Bey back because I think there's so much more he's going to do in 2017 that we need to get not a recap, on a full in-depth forensic analysis of what he's doing. I've taken huge interest. I hope you have. That's all I have time for. Inshallah. Follow Tariq on Facebook. You'll get a lot more information on that as well, and he'll be back with us later on. I shall see you on another Saturday night with another exclusive show. Until then, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.